the invisible boy. They laughed at his silence. They mocked his clothes. They passed by him like he didn't exist. But the boy they ignored became the voice the world couldn't forget. In a small village school, tucked behind dusty fields and peeling walls, sat a boy named Aarav. He was the kind of child people didn't notice, not because he had nothing to say, but because the world never asked him to speak. His clothes were always faded, his shoes torn, and his voice barely above a whisper. He sat at the back of every class, not because he wanted to, but because no one ever invited him forward. They called him the invisible boy. At lunch, he ate alone, not because he enjoyed the silence, but because no one saved him a seat. His classmates made fun of his stammer, his quietness, his plain looks. The teachers hardly remembered his name. He wasn't the fastest, the brightest, or the funniest. He was simply ignored. At home, it was no different. His father had moved to another city and called once in months. His mother worked long hours sewing clothes just to keep a single bulb glowing in their home. They didn't celebrate birthdays. They didn't go on trips. They barely had time to talk. But in the quietest corner of his life, Aarav had a notebook. It wasn't fancy. It was stitched with thread, slightly bent at the edges. But in that notebook, he wrote everything. Dreams, thoughts, dialogues from his imagination, speeches he would never say out loud. He wrote when he felt small. He wrote when he felt invisible. He wrote because that notebook, for once, listened. One day, a cruel joke from a classmate destroyed it. They snatched his notebook and threw it in a drain. The ink ran down like tears on paper. That night, Aarav sat motionless, watching the shadows dance on his wall. His mother came in and sat beside him. She didn't ask what happened. She simply placed a new notebook in his lap and whispered, "The world only sees stars when they shine. But they forget. Stars are born in darkness." Aarav didn't sleep that night. He opened the notebook and wrote again. Years passed. He remained the quiet one, but inside something was changing. He started staying back after school to read books the others ignored. He started journaling every night, his pain, his hopes, his observations. He studied while others laughed. He watched while others played. One day, the school announced a speech competition. The topic, "What makes you valuable?" As students rushed to sign up, Aarav, silent, awkward Aarav, stepped forward and put his name down. The room froze for a moment, then came the laughter. "Invisible boy wants to speak? He doesn't even talk in class. This will be fun to watch." Even the teacher raised an eyebrow. "Aarav, are you sure?" He didn't answer. He simply nodded. The day arrived. Boys stood in polished shoes and practiced lines from the internet. Aarav wore his usual wrinkled shirt and sandals. His hands shook, but his steps didn't stop. When his name was called, the room murmured. Phones came out, not to record greatness, but failure. Aarav stepped onto the wooden stage. He looked out at the very faces that had ignored him for years. He opened his notebook, and then he looked up. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to speak and have no one hear you, to try and have no one notice. I've spent years sitting in silence, wondering if I matter, and then I realized my worth isn't in their applause. My value isn't in how loud I speak or how well I dress. I matter because I'm still here, because I didn't quit, because I kept showing up even when no one saw me. I'm not invisible, I'm just unspoken, but today I choose to speak. And if even one person hears me, I've already won." The silence that followed was louder than any noise he'd ever heard. Then came one clap, then another, then the entire auditorium rose to its feet. That day, Aarav didn't just win the speech contest, he won something far more powerful: recognition, self-respect, and belief. That moment was the beginning. He started participating in more events. He won essay competitions, spoke at local schools. A teacher helped him get a scholarship to a prestigious college. He studied literature and communication. He continued to write. He learned to speak not just clearly, but deeply. His words weren't flawless, but they were real. By the age of 22, Aarav stood on the red carpet of a TEDx event, dressed in a simple black shirt, holding a mic, standing in front of hundreds of people. He told them his story. "I was the invisible boy, but sometimes those who go unnoticed grow into the ones who truly understand what it means to be seen." That video went viral. Messages poured in, students, parents, strangers from around the world. They didn't just hear him, they felt him. Aarav went on to found a movement called Voiceless No More, helping students across small towns and villages express themselves through writing and storytelling. He says one thing everywhere he goes: you don't need the world to clap for you. Clap for yourself, because once you do, no one can ever make you feel invisible again. Moral of the story: being invisible doesn't mean being worthless. Your silence holds power. Your story holds strength. Don't wait for the world to see you. See yourself, because the moment you do, the world will follow.